It was either he was playing around with his 3D printer and he forgot that we were recording, or he was high off of the fumes of the 3D printer and he also forgot that we were recording. So
it was probably a mix of both. Sorry, my camera's going bonkers.
He's just too ashamed to show his face after he was outed. That's what the truth of it is. Okay, well, what matters is that you're here.
The toughest decision I had was what hat to wear, because we're talking about AYANEO, but this is the week of CES, and I have an AYANEO hat and a CES hat. So I spent a long time. Yeah. I almost brought both with me, but I'm just doing the CES hat tonight. And then Beardy's here. I got my 1X player hat. So this could have been a 3-hat situation.
Well, I mean, truthfully, Joe, if you were wearing the AYANEO hat tonight, you would probably be called an AYANEO apologist, an Arthur apologist. That would
Arthur apologist.
Yeah. And I mean, not by me, by someone angry in the comments when they find out that indeed you can't take the AYANEO next to on an airplane. Womp womp.
Well, you could maybe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
If you want to roll the dice.
Yeah, roll the dice.
It's not going to last very long, though.
let me try to sneak this $2,500 handheld past TSA.
Let me tell you this: you will finish your 4-ounce beverage before the battery runs out. I'll just tell you that.
Okay.
We recently. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Beardy.
I was going to say we recently saw Qantas, the main Australian carrier, recently updated their laws. You're not even allowed to bring a battery, or you're allowed to bring a battery pack, but you're not allowed to have it connected.
Oh,
wow!
So you're saying battery packs are okay? That's what I heard.
So battery packs are the problem. Like as in like an Anchor 737, and then use that to connect to your device.
Right.
That's no longer allowed.
Wait, really?
Oh, but when you say it's not allowed, because I know there are limitations and regulations, but you guys can no longer do it while in the flight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Qantas updated the rules to say, and that's what I mean. It may be oh yeah, in the US it's fine or whatever, but you go somewhere else. Same in Korea. Korea, their rules are 100 anything.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
And I've been called on it and they check because it's Korea. They know. They're not being oh, whatever. They're oh, that says 80. That's pretty close. Blah, blah,
yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it because I'm allowed to say it. I mean, you're not going to try and pull a fast one when it comes to numbers on a bunch of Asian people at the airport. I mean, Ayo, yokoso, which means welcome if you're new, and welcome back to Speedcast. Tonight, we've got a special guest with us, not someone who might be able to talk about why everyone is hating on AYANEO, but it's a perfect opportunity for us to shill a different company. I mean, I'm partly kidding, but I'm also being honest here. If you have been sleeping under a rock, then you may have missed all of the fallout, I guess you would say, with AYANEO. There's been a number of stories, I think, now released by Retro Handhelds and some other people coming out as well. We've not really been all that friendly to AYANEO in the past, but I would also say we've been kind of neutral. What is I don't play D&D. Is it chaotic neutral or whatever? Okay. Beardy, welcome.
Hello.
For those of our audience who are unfortunate not to know who you are, could you mind telling them your kind of little brief history with handhelds?
Sure. So I'm just a handheld PC enthusiast. I happen to be one of the admins on the 1X Player Discord, but I'm a tinkerer by trade. My claim to fame is I did the first OG Ally 16 gig to 32 gig RAM upgrade. One's grades kind of come from me desperately sourcing parts and soldering and editing BIOS things and all that with the great others from the handheld mods Discord as well. So another side throw in there. And I'm just a tech enthusiast who kind of works in the industry and knows stuff about business and all that stuff too.
That has got to be the most humblest self-introduction I've heard in a long time. It must be because you're from a Commonwealth country, right?
Yeah. We've got tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah. That's and my expert guests, of course. Introduce yourselves.
I'm Cliff. Sup?
Gaming for Insight here. Hey, fans and subscribers.
We finally got Joe back on the show, and he's come to tell us about Steam Deck 2, which we already know and we already own. And in case you don't know that joke, you have to jump onto the Discord server to see what that joke is all about. Unfortunately, our usual guests here, Nelly and Zach, are unable to join us for tonight. Nelly is having the time of her life at CES, and she told us she would bring back souvenirs, but I'm not counting on it unless it has a lot of speed holes. So going back to the whole AYANEO thing, my friends, what's your current and I guess general opinion of AYANEO? Don't be afraid to pull any punches here because it's not like we have any affiliation with them whatsoever.
I'll start. Being a reviewer doing content on YouTube, the first device I reviewed from AYANEO was the AYANEO 2, because that was the first device from AYANEO I've ever owned. I originally had bagged the AYANEO 1, the very first one, before it was the current CEO. And I ended up canceling something that would happen again and again with AYANEO because it don't ship on time, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. Oh, am I starting a little too strong? Well, I ain't done. So, AYANEO 2, right off the bat, it took me 5 minutes to understand that this is effectively an Apple type company that can't Apple. That's what it comes down to. Like, what I'm trying to say here is AYANEO is the kind of company that throws everything at the wall and let's see what sticks. And I don't necessarily think this is a bad take. Problem that I have with that is if you're going to present yourself as being the best in the space, the one with the most features, the one with the most everything, make sure you give me quality components. And that was the very issue that I had with the AYANEO 2 and every other AYANEO devices that I've tried after that is you present this as the holy grail of audio, holy grail of ergonomics, holy grail of panels, and so on and so forth. And then it falls flat on this factor. This doesn't work well. This is backed by stolen GitHub software that you put glue on it and it crashes all the time. So, you know what? I'm going to calm down here. I'm going to let the panel speak. But yeah, AYANEO, as much as I love some of the things that they put out, I just feel like for me, that was always insult to me as a consumer. And you can go back on my other videos, the PC handheld update, the Android handheld updates, the AYANEO 2 review, anything I did, I always called them out. Just putting it out there.
Right. And you heard it here first, but definitely not last from Clef. I want to go and give an opportunity for the other angle, if you don't mind, Beardy. I know Joe in the past has been very enthusiastic. And now I'm making you sound like a villain, Joe. What's your opinion right now, though?
Every good story needs a strong villain.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, tell us.
Oh, Beardy or myself, but
no, you.
So I will acknowledge that my first AYANEO device was the AYANEO 2S in 2023. Even with the 60 hertz display, really was infatuated of the bezel-less design, and was admiring the creativity and what I considered the passion in the space. I thought the retro wave that they started in 2024, I thought that was interesting how they wanted to get into that space. But what has stood out is that they are very ambitious and they want to continue to introduce new products, new SKUs, and continue. There's been the saying, well, if you don't get this one, you're going to get the next one that's upgraded next week. But what has really surprised me and stood out, and Zoo's video from Retro Handhelds came out about 6 days ago, is that the customers, especially those that have considered to back these expensive devices, they are not being appreciated. And I take issue with that, despite the creativity, despite the passion that you see with Arthur there and showing us the devices like he did, the AYANEO 3, when you do not consider the trust that customers are putting, especially on Indiegogo, with how that works and the familiarity that we have, because this money's being given without interest that's returned. It's a loan. We trust you to develop this device, and we're looking at that expected, deadline where it's either the end of the month or the beginning of the next month. And with the 2S and the AYANEO 3 and the Pocket DMG, the Pocket Micro, I have received my devices. I was one of the early backers, but I did receive the device on time. But that doesn't excuse what they're doing now, especially that it's been situated that they are taking the funding that they're receiving from backers and they're going to AliExpress, AKNES, and even Best Buy, and they're putting product there so that they can make more money instead of honor the very backers that said, I believe in you in the beginning of this journey with this product, and there are so many. They should be honored first and be given their product before trying to make money off of another customer at another third-party store with manufacturing the product. It's been an ambitious year in 2024 for them. 17 devices were announced. You could technically say 18 if you want to count the AYANEO 3, but really that was announced in the previous year. And I think it's time to slow down and to issue a statement to say we're going to put our customers, especially our backers, first to be able to do that. Now, that might make a negative financial way for them in doing that because, of course, there is a pecuniary interest in doing all this. But the frustration that I've seen in the Discord community, that I've even seen on the Indiegogo page for the Flip 1S DS, the Flip 1S KB, the Pocket DS even. We should have had the Pocket DS by now. And we've seen some YouTube videos with those units that have been sent out. And then we just got announced from AYANEO the Mini PC AMO3. And so now what's interesting about that, and Retro Handhelds did put an article out on this, published one, is that they're going to their website, their web front this time for this. But does that necessarily mean they're changing? I think they need to do more for customers out there. And like Clef, I can be tangential on this. I want to see AYANEO change. I want to see the brilliance and the boutique aspiration and what it has done. I want it to match the care for the customers and the backers.
Yeah, thanks for that. Especially detailed response, Joe. I think it's important to kind of outline what the expectations were from the customers. I mean, besides, just getting your device in a somewhat timely fashion. We've actually kind of memed on this podcast well before we were doing Speedcast, you and I, when we hosted a live podcast, just memeing about, how many devices they would actually release in 1 year. And I think that is important to kind of reflect upon, what this actually means in terms of their practices actually changing or not. So
before Birdie takes over,
yeah,
I just want to add a little quick thing with the Pocket DS specifically. One thing I hate is that with AYANEO, and you guys were a lot. Yeah, I'm talking to you viewers. You guys were a lot to throw all the dirt at the 1X Sugar, but AYANEO came swooping in and prevented so many people from having a device that they could have had in their hands. Those who bet on the Pocket DS lost an opportunity to go for the Thor or the 1X Sugar. And for Christmas, what did you have to show for? Waiting for my shipment. Just
and being gaslit too.
yes,
thank you.
right, yes.
The cherry on top there.
Yeah. Beardy, besides trying to stay, I guess, somewhat objective. Can I ask you first if you've had if you personally purchased or owned or used an AYANEO device? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Just purely for exactly what everyone's thinking about.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, look, I can give you some observations in the way that because I see obviously, so I work a lot with 1X Player, so I know a little bit how the sausage is made. I see also with GPD how they run, and what I'll do is rather than just eye bashing is can't talk about the 3 because I think it's really important to see the difference between the 3 and it kind of gets lost in it all.
Mm-hmm.
So GPD, they're 100% engineering guys. They don't care about marketing. They don't care. They just, want to do, they give you, it's got I think the signature move of GPD is that they've all got the little CMOS reset on their device, even though it doesn't have a battery and all this. So they're engineering, no marketing. AYANEO, on the other hand, complete opposite, pure marketing. Also in the way that they do the crowdfunding. So GPD, they'll have their product ready ages ago, and then they'll do the crowdfunding when they're at production ready mass production, that's when they kick theirs off. So it's already been developed. Most of the kinks have been worked out, and they need to raise to fund it. AYANEO, on the other hand, they use 100%. They're using the money from crowdfunding to develop the product, and then they're using the revenue that they get from their external vendors like Best Buy or whatever that they sell them in to then fund the production. And then they're, treating it as like a big shotgun type approach. So then to segue and insert 1X Player, they kind of do a bit of both. So 1X Player, it's marketing, but it's also engineering. Like, I talk to all the engineering guys. They all know this stuff. They work really hard. They care. They do all the bits and pieces. But when they do the crowdfunding, it's pretty much at the prototype's been made and you're funding the production. And then that's why GPD, 1X Player, when you ship the product, when the IgG finishes, it's like 1 month later it ships in a week. Where AYANEO, they haven't made it. They've made one prototype, they've made one device. It's probably not finished. And then because of that as well, their operating model is like, they will use the cycle of the IgG campaign that's the life cycle of the product. Once that's closed, it's done. They won't make any more. If you've got a problem with it, if there's a hardware issue, don't worry, the next one will come and fix it. And if you complain about it, no one in China complained about it. So it's a
you
problem, really.
Yeah.
Mind you that, culturally people aren't going to be as vocal, or maybe they don't even have their avenue to do it because it's like in a private QQ or WeChat or something like that, whereas it's not as public. So they could, who knows? But yeah, in saying that, I think it's always been really interesting in the way that like the three are viewed in the market. And I think 1X Player is kind of the underdog in it, in that they don't get the credit for still performing and releasing on time, which they do. And then they do it like with the sugar. I don't think this is really known in terms of the timing, but they released and shipped the 1X sugar on time during a weekend that it was meant to ship, where they had the biggest typhoon in Hong Kong at that time. And they still shipped it in all units in a week, except some of the white ones, because there was a issue in getting the stock of it. But they shipped it all in a week through like a huge typhoon. I think it's interesting that like AYANEO gets a lot of credit, and a lot of reputation in the industry that's being tarnished now because people are starting to see it. But they just their whole thing is, once the IgG campaign's finished, they've made their money, they're going to move on. If you get your device, you get your device. If you don't, maybe we'll give you a refund. Maybe we'll release it half finished and tell you to get the next one. And yeah, one other thing I can say is, and this is just someone in the retail, because in Australia, you can buy AYANEO at retail, like in our version of Best Buy, it's called JB Hi-Fi. And someone told me there that they aren't a fan of it because they come in broken all the time. And what apparently AYANEO does is, instead of giving them full credit to replace it, they give them a 40% discount off the next order.
To the store. So we're talking about, wow.
Yeah, they're like, well, yeah, here's a 40% credit.
So just to put things in perspective for viewers, if you don't know like the store level relationship, that means that the store buys units to sell and then make a profit. And when the store that bought the unit turns to AYANEO and be like, yeah, you still, out of 20 units, you had 10 that were defective, AYANEO is not going to be like, oh, we give you 10 back, which logically you would think. No, what you're saying is that they're instead giving 40% on the units that are defective. This is wild.
But again, on the next order, not credit, like as in credit.
Oh, wow. This is a credit?
That's what I've been told. We're very transparent in Australia, and everyone will just share everything. So yeah, that's what I've been told.
The good old used car salesman tactic, trade in your old car, get ripped off, and it's still a better deal than GameStop. I'm just thinking, just to give everyone a kind of perspective of my own. So it's funny, and I really appreciate you saying this because kind of like when we had someone else on, or even when Clef says I find it personally so amusing because I get called out all the time, and you would see this on Discord. It's a running joke, a running gag. But when someone else says it, I have to really like grit my teeth and say, "I told you so. I told you this." But I digress. In the past, we had talked previously, like in our GPD Win 5 episode, and I kind of joked, but what you said completely corroborates this. And I want our viewers to know that you and I, Beardy, have not had this conversation at any capacity in the past. I said, it looks like GPD is always like the first to market. They always like innovate and come up with something new. And this speaks to what you said about them being an engineering company. And then I said, and then someone else turns around and makes it better. And then I've also said that, they also have garbage for software because, they have Motion Assistant, which looks like it came out from Windows 95.
It's not theirs either. They pay someone.
Yeah, right. It's god awful, honestly. It's god awful, And then AYANEO, full transparency. Like I've not worked with any of these. I've worked with 1xplayer, like they've given me loan devices, right? And I've had a couple of loan devices from AYANEO in the past. They were like well past the Indiegogo campaign at that point. And honestly, I think they were just devices that they couldn't sell, which is why they were, kind of sending them around to other like small content creators to review. So for kind of clarity purposes, of all the companies, like I've personally had, good and not so good experiences in terms of the hardware and the software experience, right? Just generally speaking. But everything you've said to me is true. Like AYANEO, yeah, you back this product, and before it even ships, most likely there's a new campaign that's already announced, which is why Joe and I have memed in the past. It's like, you didn't get your AYANEO 3 shipped yet. Don't worry, the AYANEO 3S is coming. At least the pre-order is coming next month. Right.
And that happened with the Flip 1S and Pocket DS because you could order both at the same time.
Yeah.
And so people actually would, and I'll let you get back to your point, but people actually, they not compromised, but they settled with the Flip 1S, which is an x86 handheld. It has Windows, it's power hungry, just so they could play their DS and 3DS titles through software emulation. And you don't need an HX 370 to do that. You don't need an 8840U APUs. You don't need that power and a processor to do that. And then the Pocket DS comes out and it's, oh, okay. Well, if I just waited a little longer, because people would back it and go, well, I wish it was Android, but it's the form factor. And then,
yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. And we've talked about that with the experiences with AYANEO in the past before too, right? And kind of looking at it from that angle, like generally speaking, I've enjoyed iSpace 2 with the amount of time that I've had it, but it's not perfect. And based on what we hear from the community, it's not even theirs built like entirely in-house anyway. So, looking at it from a purely marketing perspective, yeah, it's all flash, right? And then when it comes to substance, it's like, well, show me the money first, and then eventually we'll give you the substance, which is obviously problematic if you want something in an even somewhat timely fashion. And on that point about AYANEO, remember, Clef, because you were on that episode, when we talked about the AYANEO Next 2, I was saying that, what do you think is the chances that GPD came out with the Win 5, and then people saw it had the backpack battery, and we were clowning on it, us included at Handhelds United. But then we thought about it a little bit more. We saw a little bit more of the demos, and we thought, you know what? This might be actually something pretty good. Then 1xplayer announces the Apex, and then, everybody's loving this idea of backpacks. But then AYANEO was like, oh, crap, we can't change this now. It's too late. You know what I mean? And chances are they probably had that one prototype that Beardy's talking about, made for the Next 2, and that was all they could do. So it was too late for them to change to a backpack already. But they were like, hey, it's okay, guys. This thing has a battery you can't take on planes. It's all good. It's all good. We'll write you a letter that no one is going to acknowledge. It's just problematic. But I don't want our viewers to think that, like I'm just like choosing one side or the other. We've talked about, like, I guess if we would say the big three, from kind of the mainstream corpo handhelds, which are, MSI, Lenovo, and Asus, if we kind of turn it around and look at the Chinese boutique companies. This is why Beardy is talking about, GPD, 1X Player, and AYANEO. So in the handheld space, if it's not these 6 companies, realistically, it's like a smaller player. Maybe another company that is possibly like a subsidiary, like if we're talking about Conquer, right? Which is supposed to be AYANEO's, I don't know, entry level, budget friendly, company that you still can't get the device for.
I do hear M. Burnett crying right now because you forgot to win 600, but whatever.
Right. That's so. Oh my
Oops.
goodness. Oops. Sorry.
I'm
Sorry. I
sorry.
forgot.
Well, and then you could consider AOK Zoe, but that's a one netbook company.
Right. No, it's.
Sorry, just to be clear on this, because I want to use this as an opportunity to explain how that works. So many people, it's like one of the, I don't know, one of the irks I get with the, gotcha, it's just 1X,
Yeah.
different thing. The OneNet is one company, and then they've got another big subsidiary that sits on it. And then OneNet is the parent company. 1X Player is the sub-brand. Then AOK Zoe is another company, like the separate lines, they just share the same fab. So they're separate businesses, but they're not it's not all just the same people doing different skins or whatever, even though they're using the same software. But that's a business decision.
If I can add to that, I actually researched that a couple of months ago. We actually had that conversation very recently, Gigi and I. And there's also a very different approach to how businesses can collaborate in China, which, the Westerner mentality is more like we compete, stay away from my stuff, spies in your companies so I can learn what you're doing kind of thing. My understanding is China is very different. In fact, if I understand it correctly, the government is even tied into not forcing them, but wanting them to collaborate. Because ultimately, if another Chinese company wins, quote unquote, the whole country wins, the economy wins. So I don't think it's that far-fetched that they're gonna use things. And I think it's very obvious for people who study these things that you will have most likely designs made by AOK Zoe in some capacity that kind of tilted over to 1X Player and probably so on and so forth and vice versa. And so
well, that's the thing. So with the 395 Max board that was shown in the AYANEO video, where it's just that big thing with all the things that's clearly not, that's the AMD reference board. And effectively, all these devices is they take the AMD reference board and they can maybe tweak it a little bit, but it's still just a reference board. And that's why the Apex only has, like, for the mini SSD slot, it's only like a PCI 4 X1 instead of X2, because just the way that the traces on the board work is there wasn't enough room. And obviously with Super X, because it's a bigger board, they were able to like do some extra traces and get that through. Whereas on the Intel on the Air, it could, because it's a different board and different layout. But they're never doing it to like GIMP things or anything. It's just literally a reference board that they edit on.
That's interesting.
That was a tangent.
Yeah, thanks for that piece. I want to shift back to like what we were talking about with regards to like AYANEO though, right? And talking about them as one of the mainline 3 big Chinese boutique companies, and then one of the 6 like largest like handheld PC like makers, right? If we had to consider them at the top or near the top, like in terms of like global handheld sales, like how much do you think this affects their position? Do you think this is like the opportunity for someone else to jump ahead? Like, can I hear from you first, Beardy?
So if you look at like the way you can there's a whole bunch of ways you can inference how much they sell. And the 2 ways is, one, obviously with the crowdfunding, how many backers is one, but then the accessory market. So as an example, I know Dbrand, in order to make a case, needs maybe about 100K SKUs sold. And to make a skin, it's maybe 50K SKU. And again, this is just observation. It's not any inside information, but roughly that. So it's type of thing, they may only need like 10,000. So you can make it feasible for them. So you can tell that none of the 3, because they don't exist in that accessory land, are crossing 10K units on any of them. I can say roughly for the 1X, they tend to sell about 500 to 600 through a crowdfunding, and then they sell like maybe 2,000 to 3,000 or 5,000, 6,000, depending, but it's variable through the life of the product. So I would assume that GBD and AYANEO do about the exact same. And I think that's the indicator. So I think if you look at what they would, maybe AYANEO gets a little bit more, probably up into the 6K amount of units, but I would say that's the max that they would do. And that's globally,
Interesting.
including China domestic as well.
Okay. So you're speaking from a purely sales referential point,
Yeah.
right? And as opposed
Yeah,
to
like as a volume and a
yeah,
metrics, like how
right,
these,
right.
yeah,
As opposed
so
to
you,
like a public perception and opinion type thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
Can I ask if do you think the China only, the domestic only sales might skew that a little more?
So I've heard mixed reports. No, again, from the conversation. So like with Apex, I know it's sold very strongly in China, double what it did on IgG, but obviously with the supply type of thing. But I know generally they'd sell more most of the handheld companies sell more outside of China than they do sell inside in a maybe like a 30-70 split.
That
Like there's a reason that GPD and 1X Player can do, hey, we'll cover the tariff for you for the US because it's a large segment of the market for them.
interesting. Yeah, that's yeah. So what about your personal opinion, Beardy? Do you think that this public opinion about this, downfall of AYANEO is enough to shift these three players
I think
order?
I think the bigger issue for AYANEO at the moment is actually this component shortage. And that's what's going to probably be the impact, more so not necessarily in terms of what they offer it in price, but in terms of being able to get it. And I think that might be that combined with everything that's going on in the perception would be probably very damaging. Because ultimately, as the shortage, which is going to go on for the next 2 years at least, happens, it's going to get harder and harder to get stuff. And because of the business model that AYANEO does, where they're not even really sourcing or securing anything until well and truly into their crowdfunding campaign, I think it's going to be really interesting. So I'm really curious after Chinese New Year when they do the next two release, what price they're going to come in, and if they're going to have to do their interesting super early bird where they've got 5 units and they'll be priced reasonably, and then that would be the price that gets talked about, but everything else will be $400-$500 more than that at their crowdfunding price. So yeah, I think combined with everything that's going on plus the market, it's going to be really an interesting time for AYANEO.
Beardy, I know this is the first time that we're meeting you face to face, but man, I gotta say that is way too level-headed of a take. I mean, we needed something way spicier. I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
If you weren't the guest and if you were Clef saying that, I would say, sir, you need to
I'm a
leave now.
professional. The fumes.
I mean, okay, so just to kind of rein it back in. I mean, yeah, what you're saying is very much it looks like very objective in terms of sales numbers, and you're almost, if I heard you correctly, it's almost like. And it's almost like saying it might not actually be AYANEO's fault in the near future because of the way that their business is structured. If they can't deliver,
it's their fault. No, it's still their fault. 100%. No. It's as in because their model, their operating model, they're not. So 1X Player, right? So 1X Player, when a device comes to IgG, it's been in development for 8 to 12 months prior. It's not like, oh, GVD's Win 5 quick, let's make a product and then it's out. It's been in their plans are 8 to 12 months in the works. And then they get to they build the prototype and then the prototype comes out and then they do their IgG and then they start doing the sourcing and supplying. And for 1X Play, what they were doing is they were 100% watching the numbers that they had allocated for RAM. And as soon as they crossed that number, they paused backing. And that's why they did it, because they didn't want to back and not have RAM. They did the price increase. They were going to do it with no notice, but because, that would look bad, they paused. They said, we'll give you 3 days and then it's going up $200. And then they still ran out because, demand went up. But with AYANEO, no, it's their business model is what caused this pain. And the delays and all that shows that they're doing it because they know that it's they're doing look, here, let's be clear. It's a Ponzi scheme, right? So they're using the money that comes in, and then they go and then they fund it, and then they use that to build the next one, and so on and so on and so on. But they're not shipping anything out, and then maybe they will if they're lucky.
There
Yeah,
you
there
go.
you go.
There it is. There's the gotcha. Yes, I wanted you to say it was their fault. No,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm joking here a little bit. But you're right. What I'm saying though is, yeah, because of the way, as you said, they've structured themselves. Like, I'm not trying to give them an excuse, but yeah, it's just the way the cookie is crumbling essentially because of how it's been laid out for them, right? Yeah. So I agree. That's going to be very interesting. What about you though, Joe? Is what Beardy's saying, and you know what we see for this potential like outline going to change like for you? Is like AYANEO off the shelves for you now?
Oh,
Off the table?
I will be clear. It is their fault, and my reasons may be slightly different, but they do relate. But to accentuate, it is AYANEO's fault for the situation that they are in. They were committed to the business model, and it was almost like a Daedalus Icarus situation where they flew too high. They were doing well at the altitude they were going, and they said, oh, we can go a little higher, we can go a little higher. But they didn't do forecasting. They didn't understand that this AI bubble that we are in has created a supply shortage with storage and two different types of memory as well. And it's going to, at least for Q1 of 2026, it's going to increase prices for everything from handhelds, TVs. I mean, even a washer and dryer. If you need one, you might want to think about it. I digress, but it's going to make items that you would pay less for more expensive. And these are boutique devices that AYANEO, 1X Player, and GPD are coming out with. And so the enthusiast is going to have to pay more in 2026 for a device based on the trends that we are seeing. So when you have a disservice to customers that has occurred based on failure of the Flip 1S, failure of the Pocket DS to deliver that, and another device or other devices as well that I'm not able to account from the top of my head because there were other consumers that were unable to get their devices. And then you have the shortage. It's inopportune to say, yes, pay more money for our boutique devices than you would in another year, 2025, 2024, maybe 2028, when the bubble is gone. And so I really think that it's a perfect storm, to be colloquial here, where it's going to be a disservice because they have done a disservice to customers and consumers and backers at the most unopportune time going into 2026. But they still have this sense of decency and confidence because they said, well, here's another one, you know. And again, that speaks to what Beardy said about their business model. Here's another one, but we're putting it on our storefront instead. And maybe that's coincidental. Maybe that's we're at least doing something. They did actually reach out to Retro Handhelds and issue an apology to them. But and also with the Flip 1S, they've offered a $50 AYANEO official store coupon. But these are just, they're minute measures. They're not really satisfying. I wouldn't be satisfied because I'd go, wait a minute, you're giving me $50 to spend on another product that I'm going to have to wait another year to get. Why would I do that? That's counterintuitive. So it just speaks to that blind confidence, complacency with the situation. They need to do more. And I'm not a financial forecaster, but this may be a time where they need to recover from this, and it won't be until the AI bubble has burst and the supply is there for prices to be reasonable for getting the storage and the RAM, because they're going to have to convince those that they're trying to reach out to, retro gamers that want to pay less for a retro handheld and others, to invest and back on Indiegogo or what have you for their devices, because after this year, there's no confidence there that a device is going to be received in time. When they put out you're going to get it in April or you're going to get it in June, there's no credibility now to trust that. Please tell me if there is. I'm not I'm not able to find it.
Joe, you've said a lot there, and you've given us a lot of insight. Let's see what I did there. Does all this change your opinion though? Because between you and me, you're the big AYANEO guy. For our audience who don't know, you always flash your DMG with me, and I'm like, oh.
No, and I've worn my AYANEO hat because I admire the creativity, but I mean and again, when dealing with a company overseas, there is that challenge with the communication, returning a device. And I've experienced that challenge where it's more difficult than going into Best Buy in the United States and getting a return. But this really does what I have observed with the Flip 1S, with the Pocket DS, and the response to retro handhelds in the Zoo video that was put in the comment of Zoo's video. It really does make me rethink investing in AYANEO in some of its products. And I can't see myself backing another AYANEO product in 2026. And you're welcome to hold me to that. I can't see myself doing it because it doesn't make logical sense for me to do that because that money that's given to them, see, you give them $2,000 for a device on Indiegogo. You're giving them $2,000 to manufacture a device, and you're not getting a return on interest. You're not getting anything. That's $2,000 that they hold on to for 4 months, 6 months, however long. With a bank, you get $4,000 from a bank. You're paying interest on that every month. They're making their money. You're not. So they're treating us in a way like a bank to say, hey, we're going to get all of this money. And then, hey, if we just don't meet that deadline, we'll throw something like a $50 coupon. We'll do something. And they're not doing enough. If they have a different disposition, then please express that. But they're not doing enough.
All right, you all heard it here. I'm gonna write this down on my X1 please. Air. Joe is not backing the Pocket Vert. Okay.
I got the DMG.
All right.
It's got more powerful SoC.
Clef, is this Sourger? I mean, you've already had like a kind of negative opinion of them that you've expressed already, but do you think that this like completely, if we're talking about the 3 Chinese boutiques, is this like completely changing the order, you think? Is it enough to swing things?
I don't think so. And just for the record, and yes, I have always had strong opinions about AYANEO, but I can go strong in both directions. I can definitely admit that there are things that they are very good at. I have yet to ever hold an AYANEO device that doesn't have great ergonomics. They're really good at tweaking panels.
Oh, can I introduce you to the Pocket S, sir?
The ergonomics were decent. I mean, considering what it was, it was decent.
It was a phone,
honestly.
Sir. It was a phone. Okay,
yes,
please go ahead.
And the curved edges were nice. I mean, honestly, I think
you cheated. You had the cover on. Anyway, go ahead.
The grips.
Yeah,
but yeah, I still think it was decent. Whatever, sue me. They can tweak panels. They're good at putting buttons and sticks on. Like overall, they do a good job. And look, to the point of what Joe was saying, the AYANEO 3 was one where I was like, and because of my history, I decided not to, but I regretted, those whole modules and apparently the speakers were finally good after 20-something devices. AYANEO can finally push some decent audio, apparently. So I've heard. But look, there's definitely credit that goes there. With that said, we can say whatever we want. When it comes to bridging the gap between those multi-billion international brands and those boutique, the only company to this point that was even coming close to bridging that gap was AYANEO. We can hate on them all day we want, but they're the ones that are listed on Best Buy. They're the ones that are on JBI5, from what I understand from Birdie. Like, there's a lot that AYANEO did to bridge that gap. And when it comes to AYANEO, look, I'm a consumer first, and I'm on you guys' side. But I also have a strong background in sales. So I understand marketing. And when it comes to selling that snake oil, no one does it better than AYANEO. And in itself, if you take all the smoke screens aside, in itself, it is a skill. And it is a skill that they're very good at. Do I think, back to the question, do I think it's going to change the order? No. I don't. I think they're gonna, throw more smoke screens, more $50 off of the next one, more apologies. But if you think of the Wolf of Wall Street and you say, I don't remember his name, but like many years later after the movie came out, and like, yeah, I did my time. I'm good. By the way, come see my seminar, buy my book. It's the essence of the person. It is the essence of AYANEO. And I understand that a lot of people are coming to realize, and I'm not saying I'm the only one. Like, there were a bunch of people in the comments that would, call them out on some of the BS that they did before. It's just that now people are realizing, just give it a little bit of time. They'll go back into their behavior, and companies like Best Buy are not going to study who they're getting in bed with. They won't care. If it prints money, it prints money. That's, when it comes to business, that's the rule. Can you print money? You can print money. Come in. Let's talk. So, no, I don't think it's going to change. I think maybe for a while, they're going to lose a couple of sales. Wait a year. People will forget, AYANEO is good now. And we're going to go back to, 2 years later, the same thing happening. That's what I think is going to happen. And you know what? I'll probably end up buying one. If the device is compelling, if they innovate somehow, sure, why not?
If I could interject a relevant point, there's actually empirically a way we can test to see if they are going to recover from this, because according to Retro Handhelds, for the 1SDS and the 1SKB, they've claimed that all AI 370 Flip 1S units will be completed before the start of the Chinese New Year holiday. That is an opportunity for them to make up for the significant delay that has happened. If they fall on that and they go back to, well, it's just the supply issues again, here's another $50 gift card.
But how is that empirical? They can just move assets, fix the problem, and deal with the problem that's going to create down the road. Like, I don't know that this is really a fix. This is just, again,
no. I'm not saying it's a fix. I'm saying that they have an opportunity to rebuild that trust, to say, we're going to do this before the Chinese New Year. Will they be able to follow through? That's what I meant. I apologize if that was equivocal.
If they meet a statement that they have put out after the issue has been ongoing for whatever X month, that is enough to reestablish some kind of trust?
Not enough. It's a start. It's a start.
Okay.
It's a start.
It's a start. I'm sorry,
but I agree with you. And if I came off like it was just, it would be the 110% needed.
We're having a fun discussion.
No. These are good questions, but it's a start, because you can't buy trust. Even if you're AYANEO, even if you're Arthur, you can't buy it. You have to build it, and it's small steps and actions like this to issue your word, let people doubt. Yeah. Well, we've been waiting so long. Oh wow, they came through. They said they would do this. Let's see if they do it again. Let's see. So they got to start. They got to start doing that, and so it's an opportunity on a road to recovery. If it will start with them, but again, Beardy makes some excellent points. The nature of the beast is what it is. Is it going to change?
I'm gonna say here's the spicy thing. This sounds like an abusive relationship.
Yes,
it's okay. It's all right. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I can change him. He'll change for me.
You'll be better next. Because look, I can say, as someone who sees a lot from 1X Player, it's like I wish the perception, or because 1X Player gets a lot, they get terrible support, they do blah 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 blah. But from what I see and what I do, they do great. They do great. They don't get credit for it. Whereas meanwhile, I need to come out and be like, oh, the backlight bleed on the Flip. Not the Flip, on the Pocket DS. It's not a quality control feature. It's just a feature. It's fine, and no one complained.
Let me remind you, a couple of iPhones ago, it's not the antenna. You're just holding it wrong.
Yeah.
I have to say, when we had Fox on, I was saying that I felt vindicated by what he was saying, and the direction of the Steam frame. I also feel very validated and vindicated by what you're saying, Beardy, because I see this too, and I myself, who like to believe I have integrity, trying to be as transparent I can with my audience and the viewers, tell them where I source the product from and stuff, and it's kind of a thankless job, honestly. So it's 1X Player, I totally get it. Yeah, like you said, they deliver them on time, nothing happens, right? It's like that. Do you guys remember that old the Dark Knight Joker meme, where it was something, and then it's but one thing happens and everybody loses their mind, right? Yeah, it's unfortunate that I think, given the story that we have and what's going on with AYANEO, that GPD and One X player aren't able to capitalize truthfully based on exactly, I think, what Clef said. People have a very short attention span and short memory spans. And yeah, when a new shiny comes out, we'll be like, hey, yeah, I want that. I didn't want to interrupt before, but I'm sorry, sir, Clef. You were mistaken about the bridging the gap because you forgot that Ambernick is also on Best Buy. Now the Win 600 isn't on there, but I guess it's printing enough money for them.
No, but that's a good point. And the retro handheld space, yeah, I would see Ambernick being the first to do that. But they deserve it. That's the big difference.
Dude, I think they're starting to get the reputation of being AYANEO with how many SKUs they're making. But maybe their business model is different, so that's why they're able to make as many as they can.
At least I can remember the AYANEO names because you're on the past podcast. I'd be announcing the topic. Oh, yeah, I what is this? I couldn't do it. Yeah.
Bad names, AI to know it. They'd have to remove the ROMs if anything, but I have yet to be okay, not every device is from Ambernick are for me.
Well, ROMs? What are ROMs? I don't know what you're talking about. What are ROMs?
Whatever. You know what I mean.
Nope.
Background.
Yeah. Nope. That being said, no, I think Ambernick deserves praise for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of praise though, since we have Beardy here, who is a valued member of our handheld community, I don't want to spend all of this time just bashing and hating on AYANEO, seeing what other opportunities there are for other corpo companies, because realistically they all got to be opportunistic at some point. So I do want to talk about that to that regard. Beardy, can you actually share with us any upcoming projects you have in the pipeline, or what you might some secret spicy stuff that we might be able to hear coming from One X Player?
So I can say everything that pretty much came out from CES last night or this morning or whatever the time zones is, but effectively, so you've got definitely, so with Panther Lake, a whole bunch of refreshes. There's the Super V, which is the Super X with the free keyboard and the screen protector.
He heard us last time, guys.
No, I agree. They shouldn't do that. But look, with the 358H, I'm going to be careful with my SKUs. So that'll be interesting. I don't know anything more than what's publicly been released. Same thing with the 1X GPU 3, which will have the 9070 XT. Again, that's all I know. So that's a good one. Yeah, that just came out. And then I would say, logically, you would expect that given the emphasis and that 1X Player's logo was on the handheld screen for the Intel thing, you would expect that there would be, revisits to existing products to maybe do refreshes or something like that with those.
So what you're saying is, if we can't get our X1 Max, we're gonna maybe we can get an X1 Ultra. Yeah. With a 3.
Yeah, that's the brand name of Intel. So
X1 Ultra with a 358V in there, or 358H.
We're
here for it. I know Nelly would be jumping up and down if she were here with us tonight for that.
Well, see, she's at CES. She can't.
I mean, she's probably with One X Player right now. Yeah, no, this is true. What you're sharing with us is super exciting. So I just want to ask our panelists here, out of those products that Beardy just mentioned, which one of those? Just choose one. We don't have all night, guys. Choose one. Tell me what you're most excited.
Go first, Joe. Go first, please.
We were talking before the show. The Super X is very captivating for me. The concern I've had is the longevity of the water cooling unit and the durability of it when you are running that APU at 120 watts. That is going to be higher, I would reason, than 93 degrees Celsius, just based on running the Z13 with the same APU, the Max Plus 395. I mean, you run it at 80 watt, it's going to be 93 degrees Celsius, 79 watt as well, with its highest power manual mode there. And so that is, I would love to be able to run that APU at higher than 80 watts and have actually it cooled below 93 degrees Celsius. I just have not seen the actual data to be able to say, I can play Doom Dark Ages with ray tracing, path tracing, and I could tax that iGPU, and I can do it at 120 watt, and it's going to be fine for 4 hours while I go through it. So that's where I am with that. But I would love to own one. I would love to own a Super X.
So I can say, so with that, so one of the things with One X Player is they do really try with cooling, and they do really invest a lot of effort into that. So much so that the Super X on air is actually capped at 75 watt. It's not 80. But if you look at some of the comparisons that are coming out of CES, you'll see that it performs better because it's running cooler. And one of the things with One X Play is they tend to target under 80 as their I guess target max. So when they come out with something saying that it's going to run 75 watts, that will be roughly around, probably you would expect it to be 75, 80 max, probably 77. And then for the liquid cooling, it'll be the exact same. So 120 watts with the liquid cooling, you would expect that it should perform under 80 as well. I can't say in terms of how much you have to ramp up the fans on the on the liquid cooling, but at least it'll be in a different little section or something. But yeah, they do care about it, and they do really actively focus on it. And that's why, there hasn't been much circulation of review units or anything at the moment, because they're still actively trying to optimize that at the moment. They don't want to send it out.
And I understand too that the water cooling unit, they're interested in making one with longer tubing, so you have the opportunity to set it at a farther distance, maybe on your desk, something like that, in a dock state. Yeah.
And also, it's going to be reusable. So the Apex and the Super X use the same cross bay. It's an investment in terms of at least for two.
You just got to have. You just have to have both. Then interchangeability.
Why not both? Just like Nelly.
Yeah, why not? Why not both? What we
add a Super V in there too?
Put me down for both. Put me down for both.
The more you buy, the more you save.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Joe, you're talking about the Super X. Does that mean you're probably interested in the Super V too, out of the new products?
I actually am, and we were talking before the show. I'm unfamiliar with the processor. I just would like to research it more, and then understand in comparison to the Max Plus 395 what gains will I have, if there are gains there. You would think a newer processor better, but depending on use case.
The Intel one's going to be in between. So it's not going to be the 395, but it's going to be the HX 337.
It's going to be the
385,
the 370.
Okay,
yeah, with the 890.
So the more mobile SKU, like the Intel is targeting to beat the effectively the Z2E or the HX.
Yeah, we've speculated.
Yeah, and I love
that.
the HX 370. I love that. APU.
Yeah, we've speculated on that in the past, because the current Intel 255H, which has a 140T, or the Intel 258V, which has a 140V, those things, they trade blows depending on what the game is with the Z2E or the HX 370. But by and large, generally, they actually are more efficient. So if we can expect just a higher performance tier, or a little bit more efficiency out of it, we would expect that you could push up the TDP a little bit more. So we have speculated in previous I don't know, maybe it was like the Claw episode or something like that it would come somewhere in the middle. And I've personally said something along the lines of if we could get Strix Halo performance that is equivalent to, let's say, like 50 watts on Strix Halo, but that's running 30 watts on Panther Lake, that's a win to me. That's like a big win, right?
Yeah. And that's probably where the crossover would be, is in that lower.
Yeah, and I personally think that would be amazing. What do you think though, Clef? Well, what's got you excited?
We're gonna see, and the whole conversation we had just now on the chips, still speculation, but I think my understanding is there's gonna be two chips, one that is gonna be 358V or whatever they call it, which is going to be more power efficient, to your point, much like the 258V. But I also think if you know, especially if I go back to our conversation with the Fox and some of the leaks that happened before CES, that we should also have, is it a 388H that will be more power hungry, but contrary to the 255H, I think it'll scale better. So like if you give it more juice, you're going to have more power, is how I understand it. Maybe I remember it wrong, but with
core count difference, that's the only difference.
Yeah, well, it's
Core count.
total count, and
mean between the 358H and the 388H, the only difference between them is core count on CPU.
It should be for Panther Lake. Yes, there was a difference between Lunar Lake and Arrow Lake in the
Wait, it's the exact same
iGPUs.
GPU?
Yeah, 12 core XE3.
Yeah, it should be XE3.
Oh, damn.
whereas
so
whereas
they're doing it different
yeah.
than the 255 and 258.
Yes, right.
Damn, well, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, I just learned something. With that said, the Super V sounds compelling, because if you think, you know, me as a controller guy, I like to have my asymmetrical and symmetrical controllers. And a part of me was like, do I get the Super X? Because I would like to have that OLED panel, and I would like to have, you know, that more laptop-ish, tablet-ish kind of form factor. So if there's truly a Super V, oh man, I'd be all over that for sure. At the same time, I'm here thinking, and I know everyone, you know, wants X1, but I think the X1 Mini is underappreciated as far as I'm concerned. What a lovely, perfect sizing, perfect weight. Okay, sure, the Oculink placement was kind of, you know, bad in a way, but beyond that, I think it was a fantastic device. And the X1 Mini, yeah, you know what I mean, Joe. You know what I mean.
I actually did a mod on mine. I got a little expandable storage right here.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, so I got my 4 terabytes on there anyways. I love mine. Yeah.
There you go. I love mine too. And here's something that I think a lot of people did potentially forget with the X1 Mini. I'm pretty sure, and Birdie can confirm if I'm wrong or right, the X1 Mini was the first One X player device to be able to tap, and as far as I can remember, the first PC handheld to tap into the same panel as the Legion Go after the Legion Go. I don't think there were any devices in between the X1 Mini and Legion Go that had that panel. So who knows? Maybe if we get a X1 Mini revision, we could have the Legion Go 2 panel.
Yeah, you are correct. There are no other 8.8-inch handhelds in the PC space.
You know, maybe
that one will be exclusive for at least another year.
Probably, yeah.
Or a year or so.
Yeah, the X1 Mini could come out. What, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, when did they announce the Legion Go 2? They announced it in January 2025. But, you know, maybe we get something around May or June with a X1 Mini OLED. I'd be down for that.
Yeah, same. That's a beautiful display on the Legion Go 2. Yeah.
With an Intel chip. Come on.
Panther. Let's go.
Oh, you have the Legion Go 2? Oh, jeez.
There you go.
So I have the Legion Go 2 controller cons on my Legion Go OG.
How does it feel? Do you, are you disappointed? You do?
Oh, no. I love it. I
might buy them.
Whoa. We're not talking about Legion Go. Do I have to crack the whip now?
You're going to have to cut all. You're going to have to cut it out.
No. That was last week's Speedcast, friends. So if you want to talk about Legion Go 2, you have to make sure you hop onto the Discord, leave an angry comment down below. I only care about Legion Go devices. We know that's not true though, because we know that you're all handheld enthusiasts like we are. So
I'm using my Legion Go again. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Just like this wonderful chat that we've had tonight. Thank you again, Beardy, for your time. Thank you, panelists, for joining us as well. We will catch you on the next one. Have a great rest of your week or day or whatever you're doing.
I should go.